Shalom and welcome to Faith Journeys with God in the Land. This is a new teaching series for 2023. Today we use geography and the story of Samson to learn some life lessons. Shalom and welcome back again to this new series for 2023, Faith Journeys with God in the Land. I'm John DeLancey. I direct our ministry called Biblical Israel Ministries and Tours, and it's an honor and privilege to again greet you. Now, I hope that you caught our first episode, the introductory session, if you will, that was just posted recently on this YouTube channel. I introduced to you the orientation of how we're going to approach this new devotional series called Faith Journeys with God in the Land. And as I mentioned initially, we're going to use the Bible. In fact, we'll use it today. We're going to use the topography map. We're going to talk about the geography of Israel in just a moment. And then we're going to also use, from time to time, this book that I authored last year called Connecting the Dots. And we're going to look at a guy named Samson today, just as a way to illustrate how important geography is in understanding really the layout of the land. And again, this is take one. There's not going to be a take two, so if I mess up, you're going to have to deal with it. Accept it, if you will. I'm someone who messes up all the time, whether I'm speaking or certainly in my faith journey. And I think we probably all can relate to that. In fact, this is why we're only doing take ones, because in the walk of faith that we enjoy with God, isn't it true that we all sort of mess up from time to time? We lose track. We lose sight of what's important. We perhaps forget what God has called us to do, to be the light of the world and radiate the love of Christ and His grace to a lost world around us. So we're going to try to, again, use geography today in this brief lesson to sort of illustrate how we can increase our awareness of God in our lives and certainly in our faith journey with Him as we understand really the layout of the land. So here is the land of Israel. As you see, it's 300 miles in length, beginning at the Red Sea at the south end of the country, and then all the way up to the Lebanon border here in the north. It's about 300 miles in length, and as you can see, this land of Israel borders the Mediterranean on the west side. Here is the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee, which means everything on the other side or the east side of the Jordan Valley, and also the Arava down to the south is Jordan. Israel is surrounded by a number of countries, Syria up into the northeast, Lebanon to the due north, Jordan, as I mentioned, to the east, and then to the south we have Egypt and the Sinai Desert, and even about 20 kilometers south of the Red Sea begins even Saudi Arabia, believe it or not. Saudi is not a direct border with Israel, but it's that close. So here is this land of Israel, and as you can see, the topography really indicates that it's a unique land. In fact, it being 300 miles long and maybe 75 or 80 miles wide at its widest point, you can see the geography of Israel. It's quite different. For instance, the coastal plains are essentially sea level. the lowlands, which served as a buffer between the coastal plains and this brown portion, the hill country of Judah that goes directly through the heart of the country. The elevation of the hill country, including Jerusalem, is about 3,000 feet. And then we drop off about 18 miles to the east to the lowest place on earth, the Dead Sea. Jericho here, by the way, is here. Qumran and Gedi, Masada, some of these sites that we visit all the time on all the trips that I lead. But then we also can go north. Here's the Jordan Valley, all the way up to the Sea of Galilee. In fact, whereas the Dead Sea is almost 1,400 feet below sea level, the Sea of Galilee is also below sea level, close to 700 feet below sea level, and yet about 40 miles to the north, on the very northern tip of the map here, is Mount Hermon, which is owned or controlled by 3 countries. Syria actually has the highest peak at about 9,200 feet. Israel has the second highest peak, and by the way, a ski resort there. It's about 7,300 feet, and then Lebanon has some of the lower western slopes of Mount Hermon. So can you believe it? We go from the Sea of Galilee, which is close to 700 feet below sea level, all the way up to the highest peak of the Hermon, and that's an elevation gain of about 10,000 feet. So throughout the series, we're going to learn about the land. In fact, we're going to take out a lot of these regions, if you will, and sort of look at them separately, individually, and talk about how unique they are and their characteristics, and certainly some of the biblical sites that are located within that region. So let me just illustrate, as I conclude, one story from the Bible, in fact, Judges 13 through 16. This is the area of the lowlands, or the Shvelah. As I mentioned, it buffers the coastal plain on the west and the hill country. And this lowland, or the Shvelah, is filled with biblical sites that not only date to the time of Joshua, but even from the time of the divided kingdom. But during the time of the Judges, there was an area called the Sorek Valley. It's about right here. And this guy named Samson grew up there. Now, perhaps you've heard about Samson before. He was the dude with the long hair, right? The strong and mighty guy who wreaked all kinds of havoc upon the Philistines. Of course, he married a Philistine woman from Timnah, which was only about 3.5 or 4 miles away from where Samson grew up. Now, that's a very important geographical insight, because the Philistines in the days of Samson lived very, very closely to where the Israelites were. So, not so good things happened to that first wife, of course, and then he marries Delilah, who, according to the Bible, was somewhere also from the Sorek Valley. But then you know the life of Samson. He was one who did many mighty things, but then he, of course, was also one who was not squeaky clean, if you will, in his faith walk with God. In fact, some people go, how can we find life lessons along the way for our own faith journey from a guy named Samson? I mean, this guy messed up royally. He was sort of arrogant and proud. He had an issue with women, of course, and he was one person who really didn't understand the laws of the land, and yet God used him in really remarkable ways. In fact, I want to read something I wrote in this book that I think characterized, maybe at the end of his life, some of the life lessons that Samson learned as recorded in Judges 13 through 16. So this is what I wrote here. Samson discovered that God had a purpose for his life. Despite his propensity to self-indulgence, his love for foreign women, and his disregard for Nazirite law, God used this strong and mighty man. He was impulsive, compromising, and proud, yet he experienced the power of God's Spirit. Despite his imperfection, Samson connected to the one true God who used him for a purpose bigger than himself. Any genuine connection with God must include a sense of humility. So this guy named Samson learned some lessons along the way, leading him, of course, to a tragic end of his life. But let me just also say that at the end of his life, Samson prayed, "God, give me strength to finish what you gave me to do." God, give me strength to finish what you gave me to do. In our faith journey with God, we mess up too, don't we? We are arrogant at times. We're not humble. We're proud in our own ways. We think maybe we can live part of life without God's help and direction. Well, that really is not a wise choice to do. And of course, Samson realized that. But in the end of his life, listen to that prayer. He realized that God had a purpose for him. And my friends, God has a purpose for all of us, despite messing up in the past. So we're going to use geography in stories like Samson as we not only sit behind this microphone and offer various teachings and devotionals, but as we really, and I'm excited about this, as we actually go to the land itself, and as I begin videoing some life lessons on location, I hope that this one that I introduced to you with the life of Samson will be really a good start for this series that we're going to do together. So stay tuned for the next episode of this. And again, whether I'm behind this mic or shooting a short video from Israel, from a biblical site or region, I look forward to sharing these words of encouragement with you. So if you've messed up in your life, turn to God. He will forgive. He will give you the desire to follow him, and he will reveal his purpose for your life. So until next time, shalom.